Vitor Pereira sacked as the Wolverhampton Wanderers boss. Rock bottom, 2 points, no wins, and another horror show.
It looks like another expensive mistake from Wolves, and it does bear a similarity to what happened to Gary O'Neill. The problem at Wolves is not the man in the dugout. It never has been. The problem is the hierarchy. The recruitment hasn't been good enough. They've cashed in on too many players, and whoever comes in now, it's no longer a survival mission. It would take a miracle to keep them in the Premier League.
They're going to have to try and mount a challenge to try and stay in the Premier League, but it's got to be a manager who also knows how to get them right back up and bounce right back up from the Championship, because inevitably I think they will go down this year.
If you circle the drain for long enough, eventually you'll go down the plug hole, and this has been going on for year after year after year.
They are beyond saving this season. It's a tall order, but I do think Gary O'Neill would take it.
Yes, it's Premier League All Access with me, Sam Matterface. The Crookmeister is here, so is Super Kevin Nolan. Now, Crookmeister, it is good to see that you've changed your clothes today. Well done. Good effort, like that. He was back on the Amarin horse when I saw him on Friday, Kevin. Pleased to know. Shall we have a quick look at our Crookometer? Yes, let's have a quick look. Where is it? Oh, there it is. Okay. Yes, if you're watching on YouTube, you'll be able to see the Crookometer. It's just basically 3 segments and a little crooky dial that jumps between all 3. Are we in the red today, in the yellow, or in the green, Crookmeister? Where are we?
No, we're still positive. Obviously, I was more positive at 1-0 up than I was at 2-1 down. But I think a point keeps the run going. Frustrated with the 2 goals conceded. Really poor defending. But what a great strike from Ahmad to get a point. And you've got to say, Forest already much improved under Sean Dyche. That was a good performance from them.
Yeah, we didn't think that they would last too long down the bottom end of the table, but a good result for them. Kev, I know that Northampton went out of the FA Cup this week to a very experienced Oldham Athletic side. Mid-table in the league, though, and it's so tight, isn't it, League One? 1 win and you can go from the middle of the bottom half to the middle of the top half. It's unbelievable.
Yeah, it is, mate. I must admit, it's really surprised me, the quality of the league, but how tough it is. You know, never an easy game. All the old cliches come out every week from me. I must admit, I am getting bored of listening to myself sometimes, but it's a tough one. But what I will say is that we'll be okay. We're just going through a bit of a bad patch. You know, obviously Saturday wasn't great, and I'm really disappointed not to be in the next round, but we've got to dust ourselves off. We've got a tough one now against Mansfield at the weekend. And as you say, if you get that win, we put you in that top half and you can start looking up again. When you have a couple of losses, you start looking behind yourself, and over your shoulder again. So, tough one at the minute. But yeah, we'll get through it, and positive we'll be okay.
Well, good luck to you, and don't worry, we won't get bored of listening to you. Me and Crook get bored of listening to each other and ourselves, but that's about it. What a weekend it has been in the Premier League, up and down the country. Plenty of action to get stuck into, so let's dive straight in. Let's start at Fulham against Wolves. Not so much the match, but what happened afterwards. Vitor Pereira sacked as the Wolverhampton Wanderers boss. Rock bottom, 2 points, no wins, and another horror show. It felt inevitable after the confrontation with the fans the other week. Crook, he has now made it known who he blames for his sacking, and it ain't him.
No, it absolutely isn't. And he's also made it known via our sources that actually he regrets now not standing down in the summer when he was unhappy with recruitment. That does beg the question, well, if you're not that happy, why did you sign a new long-term contract? I guess no manager is going to turn down the security of such a contract, but he won't be paid in full. There is a clause in his deal, we understand at talkSPORT. He'll probably walk away with a year's money, but it looks like another expensive mistake from Wolves, and it does bear a similarity to what happened to Gary O'Neill this time last year. O'Neill, ironically, one of the strong contenders to replace Vitor Pereira, which seems mad in so many ways. But we said at the time, and I got a lot of stick for it at the end of last season when people were telling me I was wrong about Gary O'Neill. Vitor Pereira is the second coming. And I actually tweeted, just you wait a few games into next season when these players decide they've had enough of another manager, and it will be rinse and repeat. The problem at Wolves is not the man in the dugout. It never has been. The problem is the hierarchy. The recruitment hasn't been good enough. They've cashed in on too many players, And whoever comes in now, it's no longer a survival mission. It would take a miracle to keep them in the Premier League. What they've got to do, they've got to make sure they've got the right man to launch a promotion tilt in the Championship next season, because that's where they're heading.
Yeah, well, it's not as easy as that, is it? And you are pretty much now, as a head coach, Kev, almost reliant on the person who does the recruitment to be very good at their job. And if they aren't, or if they're doing it on the cheap, it can cost you dear.
Yeah, and I think, as I think Crookie's just so well put it. You know, I know Gaz really well. I was gutted to see him, be sacked last year, in the fact of the money what he sort of brought into the club. Off the back of the recruitment, and it's happened again this summer. I'm firmly in Crookie's corner when he says about him not losing his job, and I think they would have been fine last year as well. It's just, they've gone out and done it again. Wolves, where they've sold all the better players, and they've tried to, bring in, a recruitment which was not gone as well as what we wanted. Now, obviously, he's lost his job about it, but he's not spoke about it until he's lost his job. So it is looking bleak over there at the minute, and it's going to be a tough one for anyone who takes over. But as Crookie says, they're gonna have to try and mount a challenge to try and stay in the Premier League, but it's got to be a manager who also knows how to get them right back up and bounce right back up from the Championship, because inevitably I think they will go down this year.
Yeah, I mean, he made it clear that he wished he'd left in the summer, as Crookie was saying. That mentality of the players, he said it was damaged by late goals that they conceded against Brighton, against Spurs, and against Burnley. I just wonder whether or not he probably needed to show a little bit of humility and take some responsibility for some of the results. But maybe he does actually just think that it was all to do with the fact that the recruitment was so bad. It's something that we've discussed on this programme a lot. And I said to you a couple of weeks ago, I spoke to someone involved at Wolves high up a couple of years ago, and they said to me that it wasn't a matter of if Wolverhampton Wanderers would be relegated, it was when they'd been relegated, because ultimately they've just been doing this for far too long. And as our old mate Darren Lewis used to say on this podcast, if you circle the drain for long enough, eventually you'll go down the plug hole. And this has been going on for year after year after year, and it ain't going to change. So whoever goes in there is going to have to work with owners who are reluctant to invest huge money and are more interested in taking it out. And if you look around the stadium's crumbling. There's a lot of feeling about the disrepair that Molineux is in as well, and that's upset some of the supporters. And you're sort of almost taking this club back down a road that it was at before many years ago, when I think eventually Steve, what was his name? Steve, the Scouse guy, what was his name?
Morgan.
Steve Morgan?
Morgan.
Yeah, to come in and rescue, didn't he? And try and change the whole attitude of the place. Look, I mean, who's next, first of all, I suppose, is the next question. As you mentioned Gary O'Neill, but there'll be others that are in the frame.
Yeah, the only other name that I've heard firmly at this moment in time is that Rob Edwards, obviously doing a decent job at Middlesbrough, got them towards the top of the Championship, former Wolves coach, former Wolves player. I know that he feels an emotional attachment to the club, but if I was advising Rob Edwards, my advice would be stay where you are, because I think Middlesbrough are a better run club. I think Steve Gibson is a better owner than Fosun, the people who own Wolves at this moment in time. And I get the sentiment, and he's got this emotional idea or this fairy tale in his head that maybe he can be the man who saves Wolves. They are beyond saving this season. And if we sat here in May, I would level there's more chance that we're going to be talking about Middlesbrough as a potential Premier League club next year than we are Wolves. There was a link as well with the manager of Sporting. Why on earth would he leave Sporting, one of the big clubs in Portugal, to come to Wolves? Same with Brendan Rodgers, who was mentioned. If he wasn't happy with the investment at Celtic, he's certainly not going to be overly enamoured with the business model at Wolves. So it's a tall order, but I do think Gary O'Neill would take it.
Yeah, there's no Premier League experience in that squad. That is a massive issue. The players that have come in, Vitor Pereira was suggesting, were actually fifth choice on the list of the targets that the recruitment team had been given. They couldn't get any of those top four targets, so they went for the fifth choice. So they're basically just shopping in a very different supermarket to everybody else in the Premier League, trying to get things done on the cheap. And look, no matter your view on whether or not you think Vitor Pereira did a good job or not, it's absolutely abundantly clear that Fosun, the owners, haven't done a very good job at all. They may well have invested well enough to get them up into the Premier League under Nuno Espirito Santo, but somewhere along the line, they seem to have lost interest in it, and they haven't developed the stadium as they promised that they were going to, and they haven't knocked the team on either. That needs to change. Otherwise, no one is going to have the success that Wolves so desperately crave. Dermot Desmond saying what he really thought in his statement about Brendan Rodgers. Vitor Pereira leaving no room for interpretation as to where he thinks the blame lies as far as the Wolves job is concerned. This new era of honesty and throwing everybody under the bus. Are we here for it? What are we thinking? Kev?
Well, we like it, don't we? Because we can sit here and talk about it. When they don't say anything, we moan about it. So at least we're getting something which is a bit more juicy, I was surprised that when you hear it. Don't get me wrong, because there is a lot of things what go on in clubs, and I think sometimes it's got to stay within that club and your owner and everything else. But yeah, I've been really surprised with what's happened over the last couple of seconds we've seen over the last couple of weeks. Airing the dirty laundry right out in front of us, aren't they? So yeah, that's why we're able to talk about it. But I've got to say, and I must say, he's got to take some of the blame as well. Because as a manager, you're the one who's on day to day, and you're the one who's in front of the cameras. You're the one who works with them players, so you've got to take some responsibility as well.
Crookmeister, we absolutely love it though, don't we? All of the sort of discussions and the honesty and the. Actually, I don't think Dermot Desmond did actually throw Brendan Rodgers under the bus. I think he threw him under the bus and then he ran over him and then he just put it into reverse and went over him again just for good measure. And I think Vitor Pereira hasn't minced his words either. I mean, look, I mean, probably it is better if it's kept in-house, but I mean, it makes it for a talking point. And actually, I quite like the honesty of the whole thing. You know what I mean? I'd rather know that they're actually falling out and this was the reason he thought that and he thought that, rather than everybody signing these non-disclosure agreements and agreeing never to talk ill of the person that's just sacked them.
Yeah, and as Kev said, it certainly fills our airtime, doesn't it? I was on air on the sports bar when we got that bombshell statement out of the Celtic owner, and obviously we were talking throughout Sunday about Wolves and Vitor Pereira. And listen, I think Wolves fans are, that we don't need to tell them the issues of their football club. They're well versed in what's gone wrong down the years, and you're right. That cosy relationship they had with George Mendes has brought a lot of success, not least in getting them out of the Championship. But I think that relationship with the super agent has become a big part of their problem. They've also got a new, relatively new sporting director in the form of Domenico Tetti, who hired Pereira in Saudi Arabia. He's staying, I'm told, to lead the search for Pereira's replacement because he was a club hire and not necessarily someone hired by the outgoing manager. But Matt Hobbs, I think, did a pretty decent job there in difficult circumstances. He was the old sporting director. He's at Crystal Palace now. So it wouldn't surprise me if down the line Tetti is moved on and somebody else does come in.
The next game is Chelsea, Saturday night, 8 o'clock live on talkSPORT. We'll be there for that one. Okay, let's move on to Tottenham against Chelsea. Spurs players decided to snub attacking intent during the course of this game, and then they decided to snub their manager. Thomas Frank pointing to the supporters, Jed Spence and Mickey van de Ven walking past him and totally ignoring him. Can you understand their frustrations after losing a big derby? Sometimes you're not feeling great. Sometimes you do things in the heat of the moment. Or is it totally out of order? How would you handle it as a manager, Kev? Because it's not an easy situation, especially when you've only just walked in.
No, it's not an easy situation, but I think Thomas has handled it fantastically well with the media. It could have been something which is made a big thing about, but he sort of quashed it right away, didn't he? With his words, really, just sort of playing it down, understood it. Yeah, they're going to be upset, but what he's trying to do is trying to to sort of say we've got to show appreciation to the support as well, even when we do lose, as well as when we win. But when I've been, as you know, I've been a player as well, and when people are telling you to do something, and you're at that point where you're at boiling point, you don't sometimes listen. So he understands that emotion as well. So I think that's where it is, and I think it's just something which needs to be put to bed. And they would have discussed it within the the confines of the office, really, and then it'll just be put to bed.
Yeah, it's not just players that don't listen to their managers. Producers have been telling me and Crook to do certain things for ages, and we still haven't done any of it. Randall Kolo Muani only just got to the club, dead leg, doesn't really want to play as the focal point. He wants to come in off the left-hand side. Dominic Solanke, been injured since the beginning of the season. Not entirely sure that at the top of the season that Thomas Frank was suggesting that he was going to be the number 9 anyway. There was already a sort of discussion that maybe Richarlison would be that man. He hasn't pulled up any trees, and Tell is still a very young man. That area of the pitch, they seem to have spent a lot of money and brought in a lot of players, Crook, but it isn't right, is it? And if you looked at the statistics from the weekend game, I mean, they barely threatened Robert Sanchez's goal. And bearing in mind his reputation as a bit of a occasional dropper, you would have thought that they did their best to try and put him under pressure.
Yeah, I mean, as you know, I was at a wedding on Saturday, so we were sort of following this really on the stats page. But the stats made pretty grim reading for Tottenham. This looked like a 1-0 battering in Chelsea's favour, and I've watched the game back now, and obviously it could have been a more convincing victory. But you're right to point out the issues at the top end of the pitch. Matthias Tell, Kolo Muani, they're the same signings for me. Players who had big reputations at one stage in their careers when they first burst onto the scene, haven't quite lived up to those reputations. They've ended up at Tottenham and treading water, really. Solanke's been a huge loss. When you look at the way that Thomas Frank and his Brentford team played, they need that focal point at the top end of the pitch. He had it with Ivan Toney for so many years, at the G-Tech and at Griffin Park before that. He hasn't got it at this moment in time at Spurs. Richarlison is not the answer. And that's why they're struggling to create opportunities and struggling to score goals. I feel sorry for him because they finished just outside the relegation places last year. It was a squad that was in need of a massive overhaul, and they didn't spend the required money. So what do Tottenham fans and even some Tottenham players in Jed Spence and Mickey van der Ven really expect to happen this season?
Look, Tottenham fans haven't really taken to this Thomas Frank unit either, have they? I mean, and then I can understand it because there's a lack of adventure about their play, but they started the weekend third, joint top goal scorers. I mean, do you have to think, Kevin, there needs to be a little bit of patience here because he's in a situation where he hasn't got the best front line. It still looks a little bit light to me. But also, he needed to plug that defence because that defence was conceding far too many goals. And this team were losing too many games.
Yeah, I think look, everybody knows, and what Tottenham fans have got to do is give him time to sort of put his squad and his team together. We thought, as Crookie said there, Solanke's been a massive miss to him. To have that focal point would have given him a real good start, and it would have helped him an awful lot, especially in the home games, where he can be a bit more, defensively minded, and he has got a real good understanding what the sort of the problem is that he haven't sort of found that flow at home yet. They've got Momo Kudus, which Richarlison, we thought at the beginning of the season he's found a new lease of life under Thomas Frank, but he's sort of gone back to being the normal Richarlison we all know. So now it's just about, I think, time with Thomas Frank. But again, as you say, to be in the top half after what happened last season is a massive, feather in his cap at this moment in time, and to do what he's done with the defence and them looking as mean as they are defensively, I think is a credit to him. So I think it's just going to take time and a couple of windows for Thomas Frank to get his team the way he wants it to be, and it's just going to have to be a bit of patience from the Tottenham fans.
Yeah, I mean, look, they did concede chances. Let's not pretend they didn't. Vicario made some good saves again, and that is a theme of the season so far. He might be a little bit tricky when it comes to coming for crosses and high balls into the area, but he makes some good saves, doesn't he? Chelsea definitely showed some more attacking intent, and they could have won by more goals if it hadn't been for the goalkeeper. And there was a bit of needle as well in this match, which we always like in a London derby. We like a little bit of needle. Men in Black, we'll look at that with Chris Foy. Caicedo, absolutely immense. And I think I said a couple of weeks ago, He is probably one of the best midfielders in the country, in possession, out of possession, winning possession. Saturday, he was absolutely brilliant at that, and he made the goal by pressing high up, winning the ball back, and managing to force it through to João Pedro. I mean, Declan Rice will certainly have a say when it comes to who's the best midfielder right now, Kev. But as someone who's played in that position, as someone who's been around those players, tell me what you think about Caicedo.
Yeah, I think, I mean, that summed him up really. You know, him going, seeing it, notice it, knows when to go and, you know, sort of bite, and understanding the game, wins that, you know, gets that moment, and obviously his passing, everything. He's got everything. He's similar, you know, to what I seen in Declan day in, day out. So, you know, nothing but praise. He's one of them who can do everything, I think, and he's now, you know, sort of starting to see the best of him, as we are now with Declan being in the team, you know, being a bit higher up, can play higher up. I said it all the time while I was at West Ham. He can be like sort of the Steven Gerrard of this era, if you like. I don't think he'll probably emulate what Steven done or anything else. Don't get me wrong, because I think Steven's probably the best, but them two are certainly in the I would have loved to see them two players in my era playing in the Premier League, to see if they are what we are all talking about. But he really does. I really do enjoy watching him, I must admit.
Yeah, Chelsea getting the victory again. I think it's only one defeat at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. I think it's the
Yeah.
only. I think they've only lost one of the last 14 now against Tottenham. It's a record that keeps going on, isn't it? Eh? Talking of Declan Rice, Arsenal winners away at Burnley by 2-0. Declan Rice was on the score sheet. Scored a really good goal in this game, but it wasn't just about the goal. It was about the ball into the box, which led to the first goal from the corner, the set piece taking, the fact that he was breaking up play at one end and then making opportunities at the other. His all-round play in this game was absolutely sensational. He was really robust. He was excellent in possession. His passing range is terrific. He's having a great time of it, and Arsenal are having a great time of it as well. They look like the team to be in the Premier League, and they look so secure. And even when they did concede finally a chance right at the very end of the game, Alex, there was a brilliant save from David Raya, which kept the score sheet clean once again. I don't think they've conceded a goal since the end of August, beginning of September. It's ridiculous.
And they give very few chances away. Certainly, very few shots away. Only 3 in total for Burnley. They're definitely the best defensive unit in the Premier League. There's no question about that. The fact that Ben White has almost become the forgotten man, really, and is a bit part player now, tells you, you know, how solid that back four have been. We know all about Saliba and Gabriel, but Timber and Calafiori, either side of the fullbacks, have been brilliant. And Martin Zubimendi deserves a mention as well, because what his arrival has done, I think we were scratching our heads a bit, because we all thought Arsenal needed to strengthen at the top end of the pitch. Why are they spending so much money on yet another defensive midfielder? Well, it's freed up Declan Rice, doesn't it? It gives him the ability to operate much higher up the pitch, and that's bringing the best out of him. And I think it's a blueprint, actually, that can work for England in the summer, and that Thomas Tuchel will be watching how Arsenal get the best out of Declan Rice and trying to do that at the World Cup.
Well, that's what he's been talking about. That's why he's been trying to find a 6. That's why he wants Elliot Anderson to flourish in that position, because he wants Declan to move further up the pitch, because he knows he's got so much of a threat. Talking of threats from deep, Calafiori, in particular, Kevin, the way that he operates as a left-back stroke centre-forward is quite something, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, he's a top player, isn't he? And again, you know, he's one of them players who, when you look at it, you think he does a lot of good things. He just does everything really, really well. You know, and when he's asked to do certain things, you know, he comes out trumps. And I just think this Arsenal is just the Arsenal team, sorry, is a well-oiled machine now. I think Mikel Arteta has just got them in places, and everybody knows the role and responsibility in every job and every moment. And you see that with the set pieces. That's why they're so good. You know, because if teams are going to sit back and playing in that low block, and they're going to give you corners and throw-ins and everything else, they have another way to make the team think again. And I just think it's gonna take a lot for someone to stop them this season, and him along with Deck You know, even Gyökeres, I thought when he went off at the weekend, Arsenal looked a different team without him. I know a lot of people were talking about his goals, but it's what he brings to the Arsenal team. So I think it's just, it's going to be really interesting to see if anybody can stop them this season, because they are a fantastic outfit at the minute.
Well, he got a goal, didn't he, at the weekend from what
Yeah.
was a fabulous knockback from Gabriel. So the ball was great from Rice, but the knockback from Gabriel was terrific. And then Gyökeres was there to follow it up. I love Ricardo Calafiori. I mean, mainly because he's in my fantasy team and he keeps getting me loads of points. But
Loads of points.
I love the idea of a left back going, do you know what? I'll do my left back stuff, but I'll also go and play as an extra striker. And Timber does it as well, doesn't he? He sort of comes in from the right-hand side and into sort of an advanced midfield position to try and add to the numbers. And it means that they can play higher up in the opposition's half. Yes, it means they push up to the halfway line, and sometimes they can get caught in behind, but it doesn't happen very often now, does it? They seem to have just worked out the system, flooding that area of the pitch so that when the ball does break down, they're all there to mop it up anyway, and they just counter press and continue the relentless onslaught. Liverpool might well be their closest challengers. Maybe they might turn it around after 6 defeats in 7. They got a 2-0 victory at home to Aston Villa. Was that a performance, and was that an indication that this team have turned a corner, Crook?
It was a good win. You know, Aston Villa in excellent form. I think a lot of Liverpool fans would have gone there with trepidation, thinking it could be another difficult afternoon. Obviously, they'll be delighted that Mo Salah was on the score sheet again. They'll be even more delighted, I think, with a clean sheet, because that's been their big problem over the course of the season. But again, I don't think it's a coincidence that he took my advice again, Arne Slot. He went back to basics, put Andy Robertson back in at left back, and they just look a lot more secure with him on the left-hand side of their defence. It brings the best out of Van Dijk and Konate, and that isn't a slight necessarily on Milos Kerkez, but I think this is someone who's still finding his feet at a club of the size and stature of Liverpool. And when you're going through difficult times, Kev, you need to rely upon those experienced heads that you have in your ranks.
Kev, we better tell you this. There's been a development over the last couple of weeks, right? Okay, before he starts going on, he has started to coin this phrase, which is, lads, it's Crookie's world and you lot are all just living in it. And that apparently includes Arne Slot, by the sounds of it, Kev.
Well, I mean, he's got it right in this instance. I'm firmly in his world now, definitely, because I think he's got that one right. I think Robertson's been a great servant to the club, and he's going to be a big help, and he's going to be one who Kerkez, I think, can take over. It's a different ball game playing for Liverpool. No disrespect to Bournemouth and anything else, but it's a different ball game playing for Liverpool, and seeing it and the pressure and everything else what comes with it. So it's going to take him time, and it's great that you've got someone of Robertson's sort of, caliber to be able to look at day in, day out, see how he's done it. Remember him coming from Hull all them years ago. People raised eyebrows when he come, but look what he's done, and how much of a great ambassador and player he's been for Liverpool Football Club. So I've got no doubt Kerkez will be a success, as I have with Vert and Isak, but it's just going to take time. It's going to take time for a lot of this Liverpool team to flourish. But I think a big thing for them, and why they've gone, with them many defeats, is because they lost the number one, Alisson, who, let's not forget, even last year, was making world class big saves, massive saves in big games and at moments. And I think that's the first clean sheet that the keepers get. I can't pronounce his name. Crookie, you're gonna have to do it for me, but that's the first clean sheet he's had since he's gone in, I think. So
he just calls him Georgie.
It's interesting.
Don't you?
It's Georgie. There you go. I'll go with Georgie as well then. But I think that's been a major issue for Liverpool as well, because Alisson is top notch, and I think that's why you're seeing this current run. But that was a big win for them at the weekend.
Actually, Mamardashvili did make a really good save in the game, and he was beaten by that Morgan Rogers effort, which hit the post. And actually, if that had gone in, might have been a slightly different game. It might have been an even more different game if Emi Martinez hadn't the gift wrapped a present for Mo Salah for his 250th goal. Look, Salah, fantastic striker, goes up there with the very best. Roger Hunt and Ian Rush, 250 goals, well done, clap, clap. I actually thought that was a harder finish than you give it credit for initially because it's on his right foot. He snaps it very quickly and puts it round the defender. I thought that was really impressive. And, his record speaks for itself. He's absolutely world class. And even if he's
he
been a
made
little
it
bit
look so
quiet this
simple.
season. Yeah, he really did. He did.
Yeah.
That could have gone awry, but it's Mo Salah, and he's obviously a different level. But what about Unai Emery? Because Arne Slot told everybody the other week exactly what Liverpool hate, and yet he didn't do it. Why? Crook?
Well, obviously he's got a certain playing style, and again, this comes onto the debate. We had it with Ange Postecoglou, we've had it with Ruben Amorim as well. Managers wedding to certain playing styles. Do you need to tailor it up against a certain standard of opponent? I guess that Unai Emery looked at Liverpool's recent form and thought, you know what, we're good enough to beat these playing our way. And obviously they weren't, and maybe he could have changed it. But I mean, they don't really have the capability to go direct, even in the way that Manchester United did, for example, when they went to Anfield. So I'm not gonna hammer Unai Emery. I know you like doing that occasionally, but I think Villa's recent run overall is pretty decent.
I don't like doing that. I mean, he fell out with me, not the other way around. City won with less possession, Kev, against Bournemouth on Sunday, but with a bit more threat. And this is the key, isn't it? Because they're not as wedded themselves to a style of play anymore, are they, Manchester City? They've sort of turned into a bit of a team that do what is effective. Look, they're still very good and they're still very talented, but sometimes they can just surrender a little bit more possession than they have done in the past.
Yeah, and it's the evolution of Pep, isn't it? Him evolving to a new squad, a new team, knowing that he's got to find a different way because he's got a different squad now who can't control games as much as he would like and what he would. And I think the biggest and I said it, I think, last time I was on the show, the biggest thing for him is that he needs to get Rodri back. And I think once you see him, Rodri, back in that squad and in that team, he's in the squad, but back in the team and playing and flowing again, I think you'll see them possession stats start to creep up, everything else starting to run through because he's the major cog in a well-oiled machine when that's going at some pace. And I think watch this space. They found a way without Rodri, which they haven't been able to for a few years. They found a way. So it's going to be really, really interesting to see if that starts to change as he comes back and starts performing week in, week out for Man City. But it's a great win today. Great win.
Hold on there. Just checking the Premier League table. Oh, what's that? Who are the closest challengers to Arsenal? Oh, Manchester City. Who would have seen that coming? Okay. They're 6 points behind, but anything can happen. They've got a massive game next Sunday. Crook and I are going to. We're going to City Liverpool on Sunday afternoon. That's going to be absolutely banging. And those two teams, second and third. Actually, I think Manchester City need to win that if they are going to be the closest challengers to Arsenal next Sunday. That's Game Day Live coming from the Etihad Stadium. Right, okay, let's move on. Shall we do a bit of Nuno past, Nuno present? Nottingham Forest 2, Manchester United 2. Crook still positive, despite the fact that Manchester United's winning run has been halted at the hands of a very determined Nottingham Forest side. I mean, overall, your view on the performance, you weren't happy with some of the defending, were you?
No, I thought both the goals they conceded were poor from a defensive perspective, but great character, having sort of lost their way at the start of the second half to find it again. Bruno's hit the post. Ahmad, as I've already talked about, has scored a worldie, and then very nearly nicked it in the last minute. So I don't think United have lost too much in not winning this game. You look at the league table, by the way, you've got Aston Villa, who we've just been talking about. They're 11th on 15 points. Manchester City are second now on 19 points. So 4 points separating the nearest challengers to Arsenal and the team top of the bottom half. So I think we're going to see a lot of toing and throwing in this race for European football and for the top four. But if United can beat Spurs next weekend, then I've got every confidence they'll be in the top four heading into this next international break. And I think certainly most Manchester United fans would have settled for that going into this run of fixtures.
Yeah, there's more points between first and second place in the Premier League than there is between second and 11th, which should tell you something. the question that is on everybody's lips, though, is that in the lead up to the corner that led to Casemiro's goal, was the ball out of play? Now, I don't think there was any conclusive evidence to suggest that it definitely was. So why did Akil Housen, the assistant over on the far side, standing 68 metres away, believe so vehemently that it was definitely out of play, Kevin? How frustrating is that as a manager?
No, it's very, very frustrating because you ask them all the time for these to get these little moments right, and I think if you're not 100% sure, your flag should never go up. If you're not 100% sure when you've got the flag and you've got that, it should never go up. But what I think he's thought is, I've seen it's out. I put my flag up. It's not really going to be a critical moment in the match. He's hoping, but it then becomes one because a goal comes from it. So it's when they get them things wrong, and it hurts a team like it did. It hurt Sean, and I think we all know about it afterwards, and we all knew about it. But they're the moments they've got to get it right. They're the moments what we asked for, and as Dicey said after the game, they're moments where you can go back and go within 2 minutes, you can get it right, you can get it out. But again, I was watching the West Ham game today, and I don't mean to go off, but 4 minutes it took them to realise that they got a touch on the ball when he'd given the penalty. It could have been done in half of the time. So if we're stopping it for balls going out for corners and things like that, which lead to goals, then we're going to be having games for 120 minutes every week. So they've got to
Some
get
of
a
us
lot
have got
cleaner with
homes
it.
to get to, Kev, haven't we? You know what I mean? And we're not going to sit there analysing every throw in every corner. But I don't know how it happens twice in 2 weeks that Nottingham Forest get a corner that isn't really a corner and concede from both of them. I think actually it goes to a wider issue, doesn't it, Crook? That they're not actually that great at defending corners.
Well, yeah, and they're not great at keeping clean sheets. Is it 18 games now? One clean sheet in 18 games? Did I read a stat this morning in the Telegraph?
Yeah, the only game was the Porto game that
that'll be
over
bugging Sean as well.
Yeah,
that'll be bugging Sean.
Yeah, listen, that's mission number one, isn't it, for Sean Dyche to tighten them up defensively? But I think he would have seen the improvements from his first couple of games in charge to what happened the weekend, particularly against a rejuvenated Manchester United side. So yes, he's frustrated with the corner. He'll be frustrated they're not defending better, but I think he'll be absolutely delighted with the point. That they're still obviously second from bottom in the table, but I think they've got too much quality to be down there for too much longer.
When is handball not handball? Ahmad Diallo.
It looked like a handball, didn't it? Did look like a handball.
We will deal with that on Men in Black, by the way, and get Chris Foy's view on it and explain whether or not he believed that the player was in a natural position. But, you know, I think it was probably a natural position if he's playing point guard for the Chicago Bulls, not necessarily defending in the Manchester United box. Amorim voiced concerns about post-match about his side's energy away from home. What does he mean by that, Kevin?
I think obviously it's a lot easier when you've got 70,000 fans behind you, and the players know it now. So it makes it easy. So for you to run a bit harder to make sure that you do give a lot more. What they've got to find out, I think, because they're making it maybe a sort of fortress now, if you like, Man United, it's a tough place to go. I think that's probably where he's at. He wants to start winning games away, and I feel that because of the way he is and what he asks of his teams, he wants to go away and sort of dominate a Nottingham Forest. Meaning no disrespect to Nottingham Forest at this moment, but I think he would have been wanting to go there and carry the win on, and I think that's where it was. I think he wants to match, the home team's desire to run and work hard, and I think that's what he would have been asking his Man United players, that because he knew that it was going to be an intense atmosphere there. I think that's probably where he was asking his players to go and show that they can match Nottingham Forest for effort and enthusiasm and everything else, and then come away with a win. And it would have probably put a bigger statement out there than all the other wins that they've had over the last few weeks. Talking
of places that lack a little bit of energy. So the London Stadium, West Ham United winners, though, against Newcastle. They finally, West Ham fans, have something to shout about under Nuno Espirito Santo. And then did a lot more shouting after the game as well. Crook, you were there and you spent the day with the West Ham fans. Tell us what you learned and what the overall feel of the day was like.
Well, much more positive coming out the ground than they were going in. I can tell you that much. And particularly after Newcastle scored with only 4 minutes on the clock, seconds after Jarrod Bowen had hit the post. Then they get given a penalty, it gets taken away correctly, as Kev's already alluded to. And you think, well, maybe this is just how it is when you're down at the bottom of the table. Nothing goes for you and they're going to end up losing another game. But I put it to Nuno afterwards, the most pleasing aspect for him has to be the fact they did fall behind. And unlike in the last couple of matches, they didn't crumble. They came back and were deserving victors in the end. And obviously his team selections have been a little bit baffling. I think it's fair to say in his first couple of Premier League games, certainly against Brentford.
Just a little bit, yeah.
And against Leeds. But he got it right with his team selection. He played a striker up front. Callum Wilson was that focal point that they needed until he ran out of gas in the second half. Paquetá in the number 10 position was back somewhere to the player that we know he can be. And Freddy Potts in midfield was an absolute revelation. First Premier League start for him. Nearly crowned it in fairy tale fashion with that brilliant finish into the roof of the net. And he was just offside, wasn't he? With his dad watching proudly from the stands. He was man of the match. And I was interviewing him afterwards, and maybe Kev's got a view on this. He just reminded me, and it might be a lazy comparison, but he just reminded me of a young Mark Noble. Not just the way that he plays the game, but the way he talks about the club. It's obviously, he's part of the fabric there. It's a big family tradition. I think he could be a real key player going forward.
Yeah, I mean, to just follow on from that, mate. I mean, Steve's a great guy. Obviously, the amount of appearances he had, and then I played with his boy Dan Potts, who went on and had a real good career as well. But Freddie, he's been on loan at Wickham. He's been on loan at Portsmouth. He's done his work. He's worked tirelessly. He's got a great attitude. He's got his dad's a real good influence on him. He doesn't put no pressure, everything else. And I think it's come too late. We played a lot in pre-season with Graham Potter, and I was really surprised that he didn't start the season. So I think Nuno's probably had a real bit of time to look at his squad, and he's been the one who's sort of shown, and credit's got to go to him to putting him in. But I think also credit's got to go to Mark Robson, who's just sitting behind him, because he's got a lot of faith in him as well. Freddie's one who I always thought could be the next one, and it's a great comparison. Mark Noble's great saving to the club. There's no reason why Freddy Potts can't go and be that new one and go and rack up all the appearances, what his dad did and what Mark did, and become that focal point, because he's a fantastic footballer. But most of all, he's a fantastic person, and he's got a work ethic to be a top player.
Yeah, I mean, the West Ham fans will tell you that he's been the one they've been crying out for quite some time now. They wanted legs in midfield. They want a little bit of composure. They also want the pathway for some of their younger players to come into the West Ham team. It's something that they actually mentioned during the sort of handover between Potter and Nuno Espirito Santo. Kev, can you understand the protests, though, that are going on at that football club? And how difficult is it to play in that stadium? Because we go there week in, week out. We'll spend a lot of time going to West Ham. It's not a great place to watch football. The viewing angle is not right, is it? Because the rake of the seats is so shallow. The walk from the station, the transport in and out isn't great. It just feels like a bit of a soulless place when you're in there. There's a big distance between the pitch and the stands. I mean, how hard is it to operate in that stadium? How did you find it?
To be honest, because we had so many good years. Sam, if I'm honest, we had so many great nights, European nights. I can quite get it from that perspective when you say, because I've done some co-coms there when earlier before I started started working there again, and I've done a couple of co-coms, and you do feel like you're so far away, and it looks a bit different, and everything looks a bit slower. But when you're actually down there, and obviously being we're probably the closest to the pitch, you realise how quick it is and everything else. it's such a great place to when you're actually on the turf and you're looking out and you're looking around, you see the stadium, you think, what a stadium! It's beautiful to play in. And what it does do, because of obviously there's no wind in there, so it's always such fantastic conditions to play. But it just feels like, that they're struggling to try and find it, and they've got to try and make it their own. They've got to try and make the stadium their own stadium, and I think the only way they can get that is if they buy it and they get it, because at the moment, it's a real big problem for the fans and problem for the owners, which gives the fans something to sort of, blame and everything else. But as I said, I didn't sort of see that there, because we had 3 years of European football where we had huge European nights there, and they're the ones what stick out in my mind more than what you see now, because I haven't been back there for a couple of years,
I
or a
suppose
year, I should
it's
say.
all about success, isn't it? It's about the fact that
Exactly.
if you're having a good time, you're playing good football, you're making everybody feel good with your performances on the pitch. All of the other noise about the stadium and all that can be sort of forgotten and swept under the carpet because it's not as important. But when things aren't going particularly well and you're at the bottom of the table and you're struggling to stay in the division, you sort of start to notice the fact that actually the football's not very good. I'm not being entertained. And oh, by the way, I can't actually see very well from here. And it's very difficult to get home. And actually, do I really want to put myself through going all the way there and then trying to get out? And, I can understand it. I get it. And especially if you don't think you're going to end up with anything to take home at the end of it. And West Ham haven't really taken too much home. But they did today, and they beat Newcastle by 3-1, which ends up being a very good result for Nuno Espirito Santo. Quick look at what's happening in Europe this week, because Champions League comes around thick and fast. First up, Arsenal go to Prague. Actually, Arsenal, City and Newcastle all in the top 8 at the moment. Liverpool and Chelsea not far behind. Arsenal go to Prague, a game they probably could win, Crook, with a few changes to boot. Prague, 2 points, 1 defeat, 2 draws. Don't let in too many. Could this be another classic 1-0 to the Arsenal?
Yeah, I'm not sure it's going to be a goal fest, certainly from a home perspective. But you're right. I think Mikel Arteta obviously had to get very strong in that last Champions League game against Atletico Madrid. I was there. It was a really impressive performance. I don't think he'll make wholesale changes, but you're looking at people maybe like Miles Lewis-Skelly, Ben White, who I've mentioned, Mikel Merino, who probably needs some game time. I think he will take the opportunity to rest players, and I think they'll still come out with a relatively comfortable win.
Tottenham play Copenhagen. Even Spurs, Kevin, shouldn't struggle here against the Danes.
Well, yeah, I mean, obviously, this is one where Thomas will hopefully be thinking that he wants to sort of get back to winning ways. So I'm thinking that he's going to probably feature a real strong side and want to get wins, want to get back to winning ways, want to score goals, and want to be real confident and try and get a few goals at home for once.
Real Madrid absolutely flying at the top of La Liga. Crook Meister, they go to Anfield. This is where we find out just how real that Liverpool renaissance is, isn't it?
Well, here and at the weekend, you've mentioned already that we're going to be at the Etihad. I think it's a huge week for Liverpool. They've got off to a perfect start with that win against Villa, but they're going to have to up their game again. Big night for Trent Alexander-Arnold, talking about coming back to Anfield. Be interesting to see what sort of reception he gets. I think we know what sort of reception he's going to get from the Liverpool fans. But this is a game that's worthy of the final itself. When you look at the history of the two clubs in Europe, is it a good thing we're seeing it so early in the competition? I guess it is. I mean, I was moaning the other week about the fact that there's too big a gap between the elite teams in the Champions League this season and those who are just there for cannon fodder. But this is a fascinating fixture. It's the game of the week, isn't it?
Would you describe Karabag as cannon fodder?
I think I probably would, but they've done all right, haven't they? They've made a decent enough start.
Well, they've got the same points as Chelsea.
Yeah,
and
tricky
Chelsea have got a long old trip. I think it takes about 7 days to get to Karabag, and they are off in that direction, out east. I think this has got Enzo Maresca coming into the press conference afterwards and saying, I didn't expect them to set up like that against Chelsea, written all over it. Manchester City against Dortmund. Could be a lot of goals in that game, Crook.
Oh, absolutely. Both teams are more than capable of scoring, but obviously City, they've won at the weekend against Bournemouth. They conceded again. They're still lacking clean sheets, and Borussia Dortmund have got a real goal threat as well. And of course, it's Erling Haaland against his old club, so another fascinating game.
Newcastle United against Athletic Club. That could be quite tight as well. That is Wednesday as well. I think Kev was only signed up to do 50 minutes, so he decided to leave dead on 50. He's gone. I think his phone failed, actually. Crookie, thank you very much. Appreciate your time on this. We did this on Sunday night, which is a rarity for us. It's because I'm off to Prague with Arsenal.
And I'm just about still away because we're recording this after the wedding festivities. Been a long week.
Are you? Yes, you really have had a very long week. We like it. Arsenal against Prague, Tottenham against Copenhagen, Liverpool, Real Madrid, Karabakh, Chelsea, Manchester City, Dortmund, Newcastle against Athletic Club. I think almost all of those games will be on the talkSPORT network this week. We're very much looking forward to bringing it to you. Thursday night, Europa League and Conference League action. Crook and I going to Palace, aren't we, on Thursday?
No, you might be.
You're not coming?
No, I think I'm doing Forest. Are they at Sturm Graz? I think I'm doing Forest.
Oh, yes, they're at Sturm Graz. Okay, all right. But we're back together again on Friday morning, and when we hope to have Troy Deeney with us 10 till 1. Before that, we will be with you to preview next weekend's big Premier League action, the Premier League All Access podcast. Remember, Men in Black is on this feed as well if you want to get the details of all those controversial decisions, including that possible handball against Amad Diallo. And some robust challenges in Chelsea Spurs. Then just flick up and listen to Men in Black. We'll see you next week.